Hi, I'm Nikki Lowe, and welcome to the Wisdom for Working Mums podcast show, where I share insights and interviews that support women to combine their family, work, and life in a more successful and sustainable way. Have you ever felt stuck? Maybe asking yourself, what do I want? Or is this enough? Or maybe, why do I keep wanting more? These big questions are some of the toughest to navigate, and they're linked to our purpose. Purpose has such an important influence on our well-being. But how much time do we actually get in our lives to reflect on our life and our work and whether we're making the contribution we want to the things that truly matter most? In today's episode, I'm going to be addressing these questions with my guest, who is actually a returning guest. And I always think carefully about having returning guests to my podcast. There are so many unexplored experts out there that I want to connect with and share their insights with you. So a returning guest has to offer something special. And today's guest absolutely does. His previous podcast was right at the beginning of the launch of my show. I think it was episode 8 to be exact. And it continues to be in the top 10 most popular episodes. Even 100 episodes in, it's still in the top 10. And my guest is James Glover. He's a friend, he's a like-minded soul, and someone also trying to make a contribution to others in the world. I'm really excited that he's joining us today to talk about his new venture, The Excitable Soul. James has spent his life helping people be all that they can be. He worked for 17 years in elite sports, and he's had the privilege of supporting some of Britain's most talented athletes, helping them boost their performance, look after their well-being, and find a greater sense of self-worth. But after leaving elite sports, he's worked all over the world, helping innovative businesses like Google, Microsoft, Sky, to invest in their people and nurture a happier, stronger workforce. Today, James is here to share his latest venture, The Excitable Soul, with us, which is all about helping people find meaning, clarity, and purpose, getting to the heart of who they really are. And James is someone I really respect. Not only is he hugely talented and has insights that we can all learn from, but he has a big heart. He's really passionate about his work and doing good in the world and living in alignment with his purpose and values. And he genuinely walks his own talk and brings the concepts that he teaches and that he's going to share with us today alive in his own life in such a powerful way. And I deeply respect him for that. So James is a purpose practitioner, and he's here to help you find your purpose, fuel your days, and feel good again. And I can't wait to dive into this conversation with James. I know it's going to be so good, and you're going to want to listen and re-listen to it. So I won't keep you. So welcome, James, but welcome back to the podcast as a returning guest.
Thank you so much for having me. It was wonderful to be on the podcast first time round, but to be invited back, I feel really special. Thank you.
Well, as I said in the intro, that your episode was one of the very early ones that I did, and we were reflecting earlier. We recorded this before I went on my maternity leave, before I actually officially launched Wisdom for Working Mums, and we recorded it at your house, and we were reflecting that we kind of carried my podcast equipment up into your attic.
Plugging boxes into my loft.
Yeah, but that episode has continued to be in the top 10. We're now on over 100 episodes, and it continues to be there.
Amazing.
And it doesn't surprise me, because the wisdom and insights that you have and that you share so brilliantly, it doesn't surprise me at all. So that's why I'm really excited.
Well, no pressure for today, Nikki, right? Thank you for that.
But I did have I had a moment this morning where I was walking the dogs, and I was like, how lucky am I to do this for a job where I get to interview people like you, James? And, that just feels incredibly special. So yeah, very excited about this.
That's really kind of you, Nikki. Thank you so much.
So clearly you're here today to talk about the excitable soul. And it really feels like you're stepping into your absolute purpose with this. So can you tell me about excitable soul, and why is purpose so important to you, and particularly at this time in your career?
Yeah, for sure. I guess I should probably start by kind of owning what I feel my purpose is, which is really to believe in others so that they can believe in themselves and just make more things possible in their lives. And I still feel a sense of vulnerability saying that out loud because it really means something to me, but it's ultimately the contribution that I want to make in the world. And the excitable soul is born out of me really wanting to live that. In that, um, I spent a large part of my early career feeling like a square peg in a round hole. I knew I had something I wanted to give, something that I wanted to offer, but I just didn't know how or where to do that. Really clear that I'm just a helper. Fundamentally, I'm a helper. It's kind of born out of really strong childhood experiences. I remember my dad used to work away a lot when I was a kid, and whenever he used to leave, I'm the eldest of three, and he'd say to me, he said, son, I'm really looking to you to help your mum look after your brother and sister while I'm away. And I used to remember just being 7 and my kind of chest rise, shoulders back, stand a little bit taller. Dad's relying on me when he's away, and I kind of get choked up even thinking about it now. But that was really formative for me in terms of wanting to be able to support the people that I cared about and look after them and make sure that they were okay. And that kind of that foundation of wanting to support and help was kind of hardwired early, but never really knowing how and where to point it, to focus it, to kind of add value with it, until I came across Simon Sinek. And as many of us will have done, watched his TED talk on Start With Why. And I think I watched it when there was about 3 million views. And I think it kind of broke the internet at about 300 million views. And then, it's been copied everywhere. But he said something that within that about, not just people by why you do something, not what you do. It was more about the fact that purpose comes from a place that doesn't have language. You feel it. That floored me. He made this direct connection between the things that you feel being so important that they can make you successful. Wow. I hadn't really come across that before. I mean, I was working in high performance sport where, we're interested in making athletes stronger and go faster and jump higher. And, everybody is an MSc and a PhD, and it's all about what's kind of measurable. And then all of a sudden somebody says, hey, guess what? The key to success is something that you feel inside. Wow. That unlocked something for me, really. So I guess purpose is important to me because it's just a deeply human experience, and one that feels really true to me and who I am, and almost the kind of the experiences that I had as a kind of a young person trying to find my way in the world. And the excitable soul, to kind of actually answer your question quite directly, is it's a way to be able to focus that internal experience and hopefully add value to more people. And really, it's as a consequence of the things that I'm seeing around me in the world. I've always been interested in the person behind the performance, worked in consultancy, worked in housing organizations, and just seeing the wrestle that people have with trying to navigate the world these days, the kind of the variability, the volatility, the uncertainty, and how purpose can hack all of that. It can be a cut through to help people navigate and move into uncertainty with a level of kind of clarity and confidence. And ultimately it was about, who do I want to be in the world as well, and not just around the work that I do, but who do I want to be for my family, for my 2 small children, for my wife. Create a mechanism that allows me to be with them in the way that I want and need to be too.
I just wanted to pop in here and let you know about a free masterclass that I'm running. And if 2023 is the year that you want to prioritise your well-being, I think you're going to want to join me. It's on the 1st of February and it's called Success Without Sacrifice. the high performance success strategies for career driven women who want to thrive in work and life. In this free masterclass, I'll share with you a practical and evidence based approach to how you can thrive in your career and personal life without sacrificing your sanity or well-being along the way. I'll be sharing your risk of burnout. You'll learn the research behind why women are at more risk of burnout than at any other time in history. I'll also share with you the 6 domains of well-being, these 6 simple but powerful factors that drive well-being for professional women in their personal and professional lives. And I'll also share with you your personal well-being formula, so you'll gain insights into your own well-being profile so you can understand specifically the resources and liabilities that you have around your well-being, empowering you with your own well-being action plan. You can join me for this free masterclass by registering over at wisdom4workingmums.co.uk/success. That's wisdom4, F-O-R, workingmums, MUMS.co.uk/success. I hope to see you there. Oh, it's always a joy to hear you speak, James, because you're so articulate and you really connect your head and heart. And hearing you explain that, I could really feel how important it is. And I love the self-awareness that you've got of, going back into your family of origin and where some of these seeds were laid and how they're blossoming. So I suppose I'm curious because I've watched from I suppose a distance for a little while now, this almost brewing in you, that the excitable soul was kind of brewing. And I'm wondering what has tipped you towards this, in the sense that, I'm sure you could do purpose work in your consultancy and with the high performing athletes, and it would kind of, you could shape it in that way. What do you think has been the draw to actually know this is it, in its entirety now?
Yeah, I had a kind of a really important set of experiences during COVID, I think, and actually, COVID itself, I think, is a moment in time that we are at the foothills of being able to kind of work through in terms of its impact. It's a collective trauma, and to different degrees, we're acknowledging that or not, but it has been a singularly unifying moment for us as a global race. Not since the Great Wars have we experienced something so acute in the same way. And certainly for me, in that period of time, it posed and provoked a lot of questions. I still remember exactly where I was, how I was sat watching television when Boris Johnson told us we were allowed to leave our house, and the kind of the fear that provoked in me of what's the future going to be like. And not just for me, but my little girl was due to be starting school, and my son had not long been born, and what's this going to mean for them? And I think during that whole period of COVID and our need to adapt and adapt quickly, I was asking myself some pretty big questions around, well, what do I want the future to look like for me? What does this moment of disruption, where's the opportunity here for me to ask some pretty big and pretty deep questions about what the future of my life looks like? And I remember having that kind of reflection of my daughter's starting school, which means I've probably got 12 summers before she might start turning around and going, yeah, I don't want to go on some terrible camping holiday with you, Dad. I'd rather stay at home and hang out with my friends. and that all of a sudden didn't feel like a very long space of time. And so I was, how do I maximize this moment with these people that matter most to me? We're here in this house at the moment, and we're not allowed to go anywhere else. And it's rich because we're able to invest in each other in a way that we probably haven't done as intentionally ever before. But how do I carry that on? What does that look like? How do I make that last? So that was a real provocation for me, as I needed to just fundamentally think about who did I want to be in the world, and what was influencing that for me. And one of the key factors was my family. And the second really was what's the contribution that I want to make. And to your point, it's been brewing. Spent time at the Energy Project, love those principles of getting people to think about their internal resources and how do they build and mobilize those so that they can feel like they have a greater amount of capacity to deal with the things that they're focused on. Time with outside, where my friend and mentor John Gomes, who's now just released his latest book about leading in a non-linear world, which is all about mindset and really investing in understanding mindset. All of it felt like a journey to a point where I had to ask myself the question of what impact do I want to have on the world? What's the contribution that I want to make? And I couldn't get beyond purpose, because for me, purpose is the place where emotional conviction and intellectual clarity combine to fuel genuine human potential. The things that we can do as human beings when we feel purposeful, oh, it's unreal, absolutely unreal. The evidence base of more people surviving concentration camps in the Second World War, to the innovation that's been driven purely because of people's sense of internal intrinsic motivation to do something that's never been done before, right the way down to the day-to-day reality of people navigating hardship because they understand the meaning that sits behind that hardship. For me, that just felt like a territory that more people need to be able to access in a simple, actionable way.
I love that. And you can just hear the energy that just exudes from you as you talk about it. And it's infectious. So in there you've defined, I think, what purpose is. And you did that so brilliantly, because often it's a word that we use a lot about, let's be more purposeful, or we've got to have a purpose behind this. And I suppose the question that I've got is purpose and mission and vision, are they all the same thing, or is purpose different to those?
And it's a great question. And certainly when you work in organizations around purpose, a lot of those things are either confused or conflated. But purpose is the foundation, really. It's a question of why we exist. And actually, Nikki, I think that we can make the definition of purpose even more clear, really, because purpose is really, it's biology. It's not ideology. There's this sense that purpose is an ideal or a principle, or it's kind of a nice to have, or even it's just woolly. And why would I ever try to give my time to consider that? But it's biology. It's just a deeply profound human experience, and the way in which I make sense of it is it's just about two things. Purpose is about two things. It's about meaning, and it's about connection. And so from a meaning perspective, biologically, we are a meaning making species. We have to understand what's happening around us, principally for survival. If you get planted in the middle of the jungle and you're not trying to figure out what's going on, you're probably going to get eaten pretty quick. So, we've evolved to try and figure out what's going on around us really, really quickly. But beyond that, we like to understand that what we do, what we interact with, has meaning, which is about importance. It's about significance. So the first thing around purpose is, do I just know what's really important to me? Simple as that. The things that are really significant to me. And creating clarity around that is massive in its own right. But then when you couple that with connection, which is about contribution. So if I know what's important to me and I'm making a contribution to it, I feel a sense of connection. I feel a sense of belonging. And again, belonging is hardwired in us as human beings. We are, we want to be part of a tribe, but not only do we want to be a part of a tribe, we want to be a valuable member of the tribe. So contribution's really critical. So for me, purpose is simply, do I know what's really important to me? and am I able to make a contribution to those things? Because when we can, when we do, that makes us feel like we have a sense of purpose.
Ah, absolutely brilliant, James, and it's taking my mind to my experience this morning. Um, and I had one of those mornings of trying to get everybody out the house and do it in a calm and, yeah, fulfilling way, and I think I failed pretty miserably at that one this morning. It was one of those mornings that did not go according to plan, and I got up and did some exercise, which I do every Friday morning. It's a class, an online class that I do, which I love. It's 6 till 7 in the morning. And the kids were interrupting me. They were squabbling between themselves. And we just started the day on the back foot. And I had oh, I shouldn't have done that exercise. That's just not the right thing. Through to then, when it all just got so stressful trying to get out of the house, I had my inner voice was like, "Oh, you're just trying to do too much. This isn't doable. Why do you push yourself so hard with your work and then it has an impact on your family life?" And I'd got that inner dialogue going on. And it was knowing that we were going to have this conversation, I think, this morning really connected me back to my purpose and about how important well-being is for me. It's like fundamental. So it kind of then turned that voice down on, well, of course you did your exercise class and it may not have been convenient, but not everything that's important is convenient. Um, Through to actually, I want to be able to connect with my family and my work. Like I don't want it to be this messy trade-off. And what you said there in terms of meaning and connection, just like the neurons in my brain were firing off then, and it makes absolute sense.
And I think what you're sharing really beautifully, Nikki, is that what purpose enables within us, like its real gift, it's self-worth, it's feeling enough. When you feel connected to purpose, you feel like you have value, and that value isn't about external things. It's not about what you do and what you have. It's simply about who you are. And what I really loved there was actually you being able to recognize that your family are important to you and their experience of you is really important to you, but you need to nurture you too. Because if you don't do that, then none of the rest of it matters because they're going to get a compromised version of you. And so your ability to be able to connect immediately back to actually, well, this is important to me, this is significant to me. And the contribution that I will be able to make because of this is going to be greater than the one of me just compromising myself. Immediately, you described it as that kind of internal voice, but we will all experience that as a feeling, that sense of self-judgment or self-criticism or guilt. It starts to lower, and it can there be anything more profound than having that level of influence over yourself? I'm not sure.
Yeah, and I think particularly in the world in which we live in the present day, where there are a million and one things calling for our attention and pulling us in all these different directions, to know that you can anchor yourself back in that way, oh, that is when you're really powerful.
Yeah, agreed.
So I wonder, what's the impact of us not knowing and living our purpose?
Yeah, I think this is a really brilliant question actually, because honestly speaking, there are people that have fulfilled lives that if you ask them, well, what's your purpose, they would have no idea. And so there's a reality here that purpose isn't the kind of the silver bullet to being able to live a fulfilled and satisfied life by any stretch of the imagination. There are lots of people out there that are more than content and they have no connection to it whatsoever. Um, Although you may see, if you observe those people, that just by coincidence or unconsciously, there are a whole number of purposeful things that are happening for them that kind of equate to that sense. But I think when we are disconnected to what's important to us, when we don't feel like we're making a contribution, we don't feel like we're valued. Actually, the things that start to show up for us is we feel really out of control.
Mm.
And in a world that is already volatile and uncertain, to feel out of control in the middle of a world that feels out of control is pretty scary. That creates overwhelm. And for many people, the way of dealing with overwhelm is trying to control as much as possible, but it's impossible. And anxiety is basically provoked by us not having the answer or not having an understanding of what the outcome is going to be. So actually, what purpose allows us to do, what purpose enables within us, is to have a sense of faith and belief in what's possible, rather than needing the kind of the concrete control of what the outcome is going to be. And for me, that feels important in this moment in time, because we don't know what's coming. Nobody saw COVID coming, certainly not with the impact that it had. Nobody thought that we were going to have a war in Europe, on our doorstep, and the impacts of all of that. The volatility around inflation and cost of living. Like, we just don't know what is coming next. So to have a sense of purpose that allows you to almost, to some degree, with confidence, move into the unknown because of that sense of faith and belief. It's a superpower in the modern age, and it combats that sense of anxiety or feeling stuck or feeling overwhelmed or out of control, or, as we've already discussed, judgment. Where am I in comparison to others? Where am I in comparison to where I think I should be? Where am I in terms of navigating the world versus other people? It just minimizes all of that.
Yeah, and it's making me think about actually a story I heard somebody once tell, and they said that they went to see a speaking trainer on stage, and he obviously trained people in professional speaking, and apparently he got on stage and said, "I just need to tell you, I have a real phobia of speaking." And the audience kind of went, "Oh God, we're not sure we're in the right place." And he said, "But let me tell you a story." He said, "How I overcome that phobia." He said, "If I asked you to go onto the streets of your local city and beg for money, you probably would feel really uncomfortable doing it. But if I asked you to go onto the streets of your local city and beg for money for children with cancer," he said, "you'd probably feel really able to do it." And he said, "And all that's shifted is a purpose that's outside of yourself, that's, making a contribution at a higher level." And that story's always struck me. And as you were talking, that story was coming to mind about, actually, yes, the fear, the anxiety, the stuckness, about how we can use purpose to kind of elevate us out of that. It's not that we don't experience them still, but we're not stuck in it.
Yeah. And I love, and again, the story's just a really brilliant analogy that kind of shows how perception can shift when you're anchored to something that feels really meaningful. But the other thing there is just, the kind of the language that you're talking about. You don't get rid of this stuff because it's all human experience. It's important to feel and pay attention to as much emotion as possible. Absolutely, as much emotion as possible. Um, but it's much more about being able to understand it and influence it than it is it just run roughshod over us, and we feel like we're just trying to cling on to its coattails and hang on for as long as possible, almost like riding the mechanical bull. Um, and so with that change in perception, you're able to influence and have a greater influence over your internal environment that shapes the way you see the external environment.
Oh, powerful stuff. And I can hear, and I know from personal experience how important purpose is. I look back 17 years ago when I made the shift to leave corporate life. I was in a job that didn't feel purposeful to me, and literally my internal experience was like somebody was sucking the soul out of me. When you said at the beginning about it doesn't have a language, and I can really relate to that because I couldn't articulate how I was feeling. I just knew I felt it in every kind of cell of my body. And I kind of was gaslighting myself around that experience of, oh, I just wasn't grateful enough for the career that I'd got. Then, look, you've got everything you could have ever dreamed for in a career. And and it took my mum dying very suddenly, very unexpectedly, for me to have that moment of, no, this is non-negotiable. I've got to follow that feeling. And so I handed in my notice, stepped away from my big corporate career with no plan, no, And I remember sitting down with a client of mine. So in my corporate career, I'd been an account director selling high end IT systems, and one of my clients was a Formula One company. And I remember after I left, the operations director for this Formula One company said, "Come on in and have lunch, and we'll say a formal goodbye." And he was questioning me on my decision to leave corporate, and I just said to him, "I cannot give you a rational explanation. I just know in my body I've got to follow this feeling." And I remember him looking at me like I was just an alien that was just off a different planet, because I like it made, and I said it doesn't make sense to anybody else, but it makes sense to me, and I've got to follow that. Yeah. And it kind of speaks to that of what you're talking about here.
Well, I think thank you to all of us for being a role model around this and having the courage to act on what you knew to be true, on the data, on what the data was telling you. I think that we try to minimize the kind of the intuitive experience that we have, when actually it should be the thing that we're turning the volume up on. Consciously we can pay attention to about 30 or 40 things, but our subconscious is dealing with billions of bits of information every second. So which one do you think has the greatest capacity for giving us good information? It comes down to trusting something that in the modern world of work hasn't been valued up until now. And I would say up until now because it feels like more and more people are saying, hey, you know what, emotion's critical, and it's okay to talk about it. In fact, we should do more than talk about it. We should try and understand it. In fact, we should do more than try to understand it. We should be just trying to shape environments around how we feel and how other people feel. The whole movement around psychological safety is brilliant for me because it's got organizations talking about the things that really matter, which is how people feel. But the fact that you were willing to listen to your intuition, trust your intuition, not continue to justify the status quo, which is what we often do, especially if we're over rationalizing and don't feel like we have a good enough reason to do something. If we can't justify it openly, then surely it can't be real. Actually, that's not true at all. And the fact that somebody else didn't understand it, but that you were had the conviction because of what you were experiencing internally, that for me is all the proof that you need that you were relying on the right information.
Yeah, and I was just reflecting then that of your experience of that's led you to do this work, and actually my experience that led me to follow my purpose. They were both almost destabilizing events. So, like I talk about when my mum died, the world kept turning, but it literally shifted on its axes. Yeah. So I had to find a way to restabilize myself in that experience, and the only thing that could was purpose. Yeah. And yeah, and I've not thought about it in that way, but actually, yeah, I couldn't articulate it, but it gave me, it meant that I wasn't untethered, that I could navigate that experience.
Yeah, Viktor Frankl uses that language around a just cause, which again, just kind of wanted to bust a bit of a myth around purpose, is that often a hesitancy of engaging with purpose or wanting to clarify purpose is that there's this sense that if it's not massive and it's not world changing, then surely I don't really have one. and that doesn't have to be the case at all. In fact, that's not the case for most people. Great if your purpose is actually to transform the world and you are motivated to make a contribution to that and you are making progress against it. Brilliant. Let's have as many people in the world doing that as we possibly can. But that's not everybody. It doesn't have to be everybody. And it shouldn't be a reason for it kind of standing in the way. Far more important is just saying, what's the just cause that helps me align what I think, what I feel, what I see, how I behave. Because when we have that just cause, your example just proves that more things are possible for us. We see more. We're able to act on more. There are greater levels of opportunity. There is less fear and anxiety. We're less closed. We're less narrow. And that for me is the real kind of liberation around purpose.
Oh, I love that word, liberation. Yeah. So I'm imagining people listening to this, and my listeners are going to be going, "This sounds amazing. It all sounds brilliant." But actually, I'm so busy. I'm so overwhelmed. It's almost like it's a luxury. So, how do you make this simple for people? How do you make it kind of accessible that we can bring it into our lives?
Yeah, and I think that's a kind of a really important build on what I was just saying there in terms of it purpose not being this over-aggrandized philosophy. Like I was saying, purpose is simply biology. It's within you already. And the simplest way to make sense of purpose is it's about feeling enough. And for me, that comes down to choices. If you are able to connect with what matters to you, and you look to and you focus on making a contribution to those things, your choices align behind it. Your choices and your decisions become clear. They become focused. And so it can be really, really simple things. Like you gave a wonderful example of this morning. Should I do this online class or not? That's a choice. That's a choice point for you in your life. And actually, for many of us who potentially don't have purpose or haven't considered the things that really matter to us and the contribution that we want to make, the default would be, what does somebody else need? And instead of defaulting to that, which creates cost and compromise over the short, medium, and long term, you were able to say, actually, what do I need in this moment? What what is going to help me make the contribution that I want to make? And so the choice was, let's not bin off the session that I really love and get a huge amount out of, because then life will be easier. It's actually the more difficult choice, but the one that generated greatest value for you and for the people you care about. So really, making purpose simple is, it's about choice. It's about understanding um, what really matters, and the decisions that you make, the choice points aligning to what really matters. And so anybody, without doing the work of identifying purpose and clarifying purpose, in any moment across the course of today, there'll be choice points. There'll be a moment where you have to turn left to do one thing or turn right to do another thing. And if we just become aware of those moments and say, actually, what's driving my decision here? What's driving my choice here? That's starting to build awareness to, am I just defaulting to something that I don't understand? Or is my brain just trying to take the path of least resistance? Or me continually putting others before myself? Or is it a case of being able to say, well, what does really matter in this moment? Can I make a more courageous choice or decision?
Oh, you put it so brilliantly, James. And a question that's on my mind is, how do values and purpose kind of interplay with each other?
Yeah. Um, I think directly, actually. So, and we can use, Simon Sinek as a frame here: the why, the how, and the what. For me, purpose is the why. It's the kind of the reason for being. It's the kind of the foundation, the just cause. The how, those are the unique characteristics that you possess as a human being. You are unique. You are irreplaceable. And understanding what makes you you is deeply important. And part of that are, what are the things that you value. So should probably create distinction here between feeling valued and your values. So feeling valued is about self-worth. So if you feel seen, if you feel heard, if you feel safe, you feel valued. Often when we make a contribution to something that we care about, we feel valued. So that's just part of our natural, hardwired human experience. Our values are things that they're kind of like guiding principles, if you like, around what's really important to us. And when we're in alignment with our values, we feel a far less kind of resistance to the choices that we're making and the experiences that we're having. So for me, values massively sits in the how. How do you live your purpose? And again, for me, my kind of three core values are around around hope, around honesty, and around connection. Hopefulness is, I can't get away from it. I'm just an optimist by nature. Anybody that's ever had to manage me before has tried to drill into me the need to balance optimism with pragmatism, and I still find it difficult. And
Me too.
I come unstuck all of the time. But that sense of hopefulness and optimism is also about what's possible, and that's really critical to me. I'm interested in what's possible, not just what has been. Honesty is a really important value of mine, which is much more about authenticity. What's really happening for me and for the people that are around me and the people that I work with? Can I see the truth in what's happening for somebody, or some version that is being shared or that I'm trying to share? So honesty, and that kind of leads to integrity as well, in terms of integrity of thought, integrity of behavior, etc. And then the final one really is around connection, because empathy, emotional insight, deep, meaningful interaction, those are the things that govern how I behave with other people. And it's just become more important for me in my life to be able to lean into that and not try and go, okay, so you have that. Where are all the gaps for you? Where are all the areas of growth? All the things that you're really terrible at? Let's focus on those. Done that a lot, a lot. And actually, whenever you ask anybody, oh, could I have some feedback, or how did you experience that, or how do you experience me, or where's the value created? What could I do more of? It's the same things always that show up. Energy, positivity. And so at some point you have to go, yeah, okay, I can always look for the gaps, but at some point I've just got to own the reality, which is these are the things that are valuable. So for me, the interplay between purpose and values is, we have a why, we have a just cause, then how do I bring that to life? How do I live that? And your values are intrinsically linked in that way.
Yeah, that makes absolute sense, and I love that you've clarified that. Thank
There's
you.
definitely a short answer to that question, and I gave you the long one. So
No, but you would, and I think that's so important, because we can get lost in these concepts, but it's also what I took from what you said is, like, purpose is the guiding light, but the values are the way in which you walk towards that light. And yeah, and both those principles are really important, but without the purpose, we don't know where we're walking. So tell me more about the Excitable Soul. I obviously have had the pleasure of learning a bit about this from you and from your website, but for somebody that is like, oh, actually, what is it? So can you tell us what the business is and how you work with people and what's so excitable about it?
Well, the excitable bit is definitely me right now, because I feel like I'm just kind of embracing something really, really, just really true to who I am. The Tigger energy is high, but I think in terms of the kind of the organisation and who we are and what we're trying to bring to the world is, we're in this moment the focus is on purpose, because we're seeing people struggle. We're in a moment in time in human history where there is a convergence of all kinds of forces that are disrupting what had been a fairly steady pattern for 50 years. And how we as human beings are the most adaptable species on the planet, but man, do we hate change. So we can change really quickly when we're forced to, or we can just have lots and lots of pain for a long period of time and then still come to the same endpoint. And I think for me right now, purpose is a mechanism to help people navigate some of the really significant challenges that we face now and going forwards into the future. And so what we're interested in doing at the Excitable Soul is creating space and experience where people can do three things. One, they can discover their purpose. And I use that language purposefully, no pun intended, that purpose is within you already. Whether you know it or not, it is there. And so it's a journey of discovery, not invention. How do we help people understand the experiences they've had in their life up until this point and be able to articulate those experiences in a very simple but powerful way, which is your sense of purpose. The second thing that we're trying to do is, once people have a handle on that, once they're able to articulate that and understand where it comes from, can we live it? Can we understand it in a way that means we can maybe challenge some of the choices we've made up until this point in time? Can we disrupt some of the things that we give meaning to right now and actually live much more in alignment with our purpose? Because after all, if we're saying our purpose is what's important to us and a desire to make a contribution against that, then surely the more aligned we are in the choices and the decisions we make, the more purposeful we are on a day-to-day basis. So the second thing is about alignment, and we help people create greater alignment. And then the third element of it is, well, what does that mean in terms of decision making? What does that mean in terms of how I use this as a frame of reference in the world going forwards, so that I can have confidence in what's to come, not fear, anxiety around the uncertainty that I'm surrounded by? So how do I really live it? What does that look like? And I think if we can do those three things very simply and very practically for people, what we're giving them is a kit bag that will hack away at uncertainty, that will set a direction, a north star, to your analogy, that even though we don't know what the path is moment to moment, we're clear on the direction of travel. And that sense of comfort, confidence, um, aspiration, hopefulness, that's the antidote to all of the negative things that we're bombarded with on a day-to-day basis. So the way in which we're trying to do that, I guess the kind of the what does that practicality look like? It's all well and good to say, yeah, we have these practical, simple experiences. Is getting small groups of people together to go through that process. So in-person small group coaching, where we have a session around discovering purpose, a session around aligning with purpose, and then a session around really living it. We recognize that not everybody wants to travel these days, and that there are people, kind of far from corners of the planet that are interested in this. So we have a kind of a virtual experience where people can engage from the comfort of their own surroundings in order to explore this. And then there are people who just have their own journey and want to explore their own journey. So we kind of create a bespoke, curated version of this for people if they just want some one-to-one support. So really, it's about kind of coached experiences, either in person. We have retreats that we offer.
Your retreat location looks phenomenal, James. I'm like, oh wow, good choice.
Well, yeah, it's beautiful actually. And what's been really wonderful about that is, in bringing the retreat together, the people that we're engaging with just are purposeful individuals. It's been fantastic. So the guys that have that own and run Bleaklow Farm, which is the place that we're looking to host some of these events there, the journey that they've been on to kind of bring that place to its current form. Even the guy that we've got to come in and chef for us and look after people, his journey of purpose to get to that point. It just feels like the universe was aligning around the experience. So it's an incredible thing to be a part of.
I would definitely recommend people check out your website and follow the path that feels right for them with it, because as you say, there are a number of different ways in which you work with people and help them discover and live their purpose. So if there was just one thing that you want somebody listening to this conversation to take away, knowing that you've shared so many nuggets of wisdom, what would you want that one thing to be?
That you are already enough, that you're not defined by what you do or what you have, but who you are. And the more that you can just pay attention to the things that you care about, defined by you, and make a contribution to that, the more you are going to feel that you're enough. But I don't think people are told often enough that they are enough, and that is all that matters. So if people just, cut to the end and they don't listen to me getting overly excited about lots of stuff, and they just come to this point, hear it from me, you are enough. And there are ways in which you can feel it even more.
My nervous system just took like a big breath and exhaled when you said that. And I'm sure people listening will have their own experience of that, but that was really powerful. So I know people are going to want to find out more about you and your work if they don't already. So where would you point them to find out more?
We are trying to live in the modern world and be across, social media as much as we can, predominantly Instagram and LinkedIn. So the Excitable Soul in both of those places. Really, the website is the place that we are looking to kind of build our community around. So just sharing our thinking and our perspective, sharing our offering, building a community of like-minded people to kind of add their experiences in. So if people are interested in us, theexcitablesoul.com would be the first place that I would point them to. And yeah, take it from there. And please don't be shy in reaching out to us if we've kind of provoked any sort of feeling or thinking, and you want to explore that more. Just let us know.
Brilliant. James, thank you. As always, it's an absolute pleasure to spend time with you and get inside your mind and hear your insights. So really grateful.
Thank you, Nikki. Thank you for having me on again. Thank you for just leading the way. Thank you for sharing brilliant stories and anecdotes to kind of bring my wacky thinking to life in this moment. It's just really wonderful to be in conversation with you. Thank you.
Likewise. I just wanted to pop in here and let you know about a free masterclass that I'm running. And if 2023 is the year that you want to prioritise your well-being, I think you're going to want to join me. It's on the 1st of February and it's called Success Without Sacrifice, the high performance success strategies for career-driven women who want to thrive in work and life. In this free masterclass, I'll share with you a practical and evidence-based approach to how you can thrive in your career and personal life without sacrificing your sanity or well-being along the way. I'll be sharing your risk of burnout. You'll learn the research behind why women are at more risk of burnout than at any other time in history. I'll also share with you the 6 domains of well-being, these 6 simple but powerful factors that drive well-being for professional women in their personal and professional lives. And I'll also share with you your personal well-being formula, so you'll gain insights into your own well-being profile so you can understand specifically the resources and liabilities that you have around your well-being, empowering you with your own well-being action plan. You can join me for this free masterclass by registering over at wisdom4workingmums.co.uk/success. That's wisdom4, F-O-R, workingmums, MUMS.co.uk/success. See you there. If you've enjoyed this episode of Wisdom for Working Mums, please share it on social media and with your friends and family. I'd love to connect with you too, so if you head over to wisdomforworkingmums.co.uk, you'll find a link on how to do this. And if you love the show and really want to support it, please go to iTunes, write a review and subscribe. You'll be helping another working mum find this resource too. Thanks so much for listening.